We unwind what they're really saying, genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that cottage promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics, keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are mourn, just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed, disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
So we, eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful friends. This is your special Wednesday episode of Rogue Ways. We are here tonight. We're supposed to have Jay and Derek with us, and perhaps they'll show up at any moment. I believe Jay is on his way at the very least, and I am not sure what happened to Derek. We were literally just talking not that long ago, so sometimes shit happens, and we'll see how it goes. But otherwise, I will show you some things to get us started. That's not what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you CoreySharman.com, which is also rogueways.org. And here you can find all kinds of stuff that I write and do. You can find links to my Subscribestar, and I hope you support me there. That is my favorite way to be supported. Let me just do something really quick. You look at this beautiful image while I pretend like I know what's going on. Sorry, I had to text someone. Weird. Why does it do that now? All right. Anyway, yes, CoreySharman.com/rogueways.org. Either of those will get you to this place full of beautiful wonder, all kinds of things. You know what I love? I love that down here there's the noosphere, and you can click on anything that interests you and find related poetry, articles, all kinds of shit. There's an octopus that changes color and texture as he goes. All kinds of stuff. I like that organizational system. And of course, the tabs at the top keep you moving through. You can find my published works here. I've got a fictional novel, which is the first in a trilogy. The sequel is about to come out. I've got the hardcover of that book. I've got a memoir about my time teaching on a Native American reservation. I have a book of poetry. I also do tarot readings. I would love to offer you a tarot reading. If you can't tell, I'm into photography as well. My tarot readings are amazingly insightful and connected to your highest spiritual self, and people who get them are always very glad they did so. If you have been stumbling through something or just want some clarity or reassurance that you're on the right path, this can be an amazing tool for you, so check that out. And of course, you can also support me by shopping at rogueways.org. I make my own Orgonite pendants. They are one of a kind, beautiful pieces that are for you. I sell Rogue gear. They don't make me much, but they are fun if you want to support the logo. I love the logo myself. I have classes I teach and tarot readings that I give, of course, like I already said, and you can purchase them through this if you like that better than the PayPal method. And right now, of course, Sine Curve, that first in the series, in the trilogy, is on super sale. $10 shipped anywhere in the United States with an inscription from me and the Rogue Ways stickers. So check those things out. And of course, subscribe at subscribestar.com/rogue-ways. And that will be awesome. So we've got at least one person in the waiting room for you. So let me work it like this. Sorry, we're kind of trippy today. This is just the way it's going. So let's see. Jay is here, I think. And I'll say what's up to the people in the chat while we're waiting. We got Biggie Smollett as usual. What's up, Jay? Jay Ritchie's here. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Good. I can hear you now. How you doing?
Good. We can hear you too. I don't know what happened to Derek. I was just telling people all about our troubles. And I was saying hi to some people in the chats. We've got DBE Media, which is Drew. What's up, Drew? We've got Eerie Fairy in the house. We've got... Oh, and it's Eerie Fairy's birthday today, I think. Happy birthday, Eerie Fairy.
Happy birthday.
And... It's it's hard to scroll through this all. People are commenting like 5 times in a row for some reason. I think it's a chat malfunction. Anyway, it's good to see you guys. We got some other people who haven't said hi yet. So, Jay, I would go through the intro, but then I would be doing it without Derek. So I don't know if we want to just hang out for a minute and then start.
Yeah, well, we'll kick back.
I love
They're clearly trying to hold us down.
For sure. Always. I love that,
We're going to expose the truth.
I love that, like, I can't even tell anymore if it's just malfunction of my, my item, my objects, my electronic things, if it's, user malfunction, which happens too, or if it's, like, them fucking with me, because all of those things happen. So how do I even figure it out anymore?
I just err on the side of conspiracy every time.
Yeah, just blame it on them whenever possible. I don't know about you, but it's 90 degrees outside, and it's about 85, I think, in this room that I'm in right now, and I have no air conditioning.
Yikes. See, that's the thing about Florida. It doesn't matter how hot it gets. As long as you don't go outside, it's going to be pretty cold.
Really?
Yeah, because everybody keeps it like 68 degrees at all times.
Everyone here does, too. We just don't have air conditioning in the house we live in, so we're just the, poverty-stricken losers that don't have air conditioning.
Damn.
I know, we're not really that poor. We just haven't. We're just debating how do we go about it, right? Because we might do an addition to the house, and if we do that, is it going to be easy to just throw in, central air conditioning? I don't know. Is it not? Should we just put one in the window? Should we get, a swamp cooler? Or there's so many ways to go. And
big fan and a bucket of ice.
Yeah, I like that. That's, Great Gatsby style. Fucking Chad. Chad from the NSA is always fucking with us. Yeah, everybody commenting, I'm getting it 5 times in a row. So the chat looks huge, but it's actually not huge.
I'll take it. How's my audio coming through? Do I sound okay? I didn't plug my mic in because it's giving me issues today.
Of course. No, you sound great to me. You're a tiny bit loud, if anything, but it's not a bad thing.
I'll keep it like this then.
Biggie Smollett says swamp coolers don't work that great. That's good to know. I also we were thinking about evaporative coolers. Is that the same thing? I think it might be the same thing. Erie Fairy says your sound is good, and Biggie says you sound like $1 million. So
awesome. I'll take that internal computer speaker all day long.
Your background is more perfect than anyone can know because they don't know yet what's going on.
I just thought I'd call in. I'm the only one invited to the fair this year.
Yeah.
For some reason, they shut everything down, but
they still have the lights going and the.
I'm tight with some of the carnies.
Why don't you tell us about what's going on with War on Morons? Because I hear there might be some changes, and maybe there's some people who don't even know what it is to begin with. So maybe you can let people know.
Oh yeah, gladly. So War on Morons. We've been doing it now. We just did episode 33. So, so we just did episode 33. We do it every week, Monday night at 7:00 Eastern. Basically, it's a weekly comedy podcast where we cover all of the stupidity in the headlines. So we talk about stupid criminals, stupid politicians, stupid Hollywood people, just everything that we can get our hands on. Those Florida man stories everybody likes. Oh, yeah. And it seems like the only people that ever call into our call-in line are lunatics. So we get 3 or 4 really, really interesting phones, call-ins every show with some really crazy characters. And it's a blast.
And I love that anybody can call in, right? And leave you a message.
Yes.
So that's all. Do you want to give people the number while we're at it?
I do. So let me just make sure I have it right.
I'll put it in
You know
the
what?
chat.
You'd think I would have it.
No, I don't know.
But I want to make sure that I have it right.
People ask me my YouTube address, and I'm like, and I finally realized I have an easy one. It's youtube.com/c/rogue-ways. And I'm like, or not even dash, just rogue ways. So I finally, now it's easy.
Oh yeah, it's a super easy, memorable number. I say it 10 times a show, and yet when I'm not looking at it, all right. So it's 813 906 9099.
9099. within a chat. And you can call anytime, night or day, and leave a message, right?
Yep, you don't have to call when we're on the air. You leave a voicemail, we will play it on the air.
So if you get
We will respond to it.
super trashed and you feel like calling someone, call Jay.
The weirder, the better.
Yes, that's awesome.
And we're also on Facebook. It's facebook.com/waronmorons. And on YouTube. We don't have the fancy YouTube address yet, but if you look for War on Morons, you'll probably find us.
Was that something I had to like apply for? Because I don't even remember doing it.
I think they let you have it after you get like a certain amount of subscribers.
I hate that.
You know the YouTube, they're always trying to hold everybody down.
For real. Yeah, because I had to get to, that was probably what it was. I had to get to 1,000 before I could do anything. I don't even remember all the things that I couldn't do because now I take it for granted. And it's annoying because it's hard to get to 1,000 because no one's allowed to see anything. It's like you can post it on Facebook, no one's gonna see it. Even if you pay,
right?
I feel like they just like have their bots go like it and interact with it. So I'm not even sure that matters. You know what I mean?
Well, we tried that, and they don't let us because I guess we don't toe the company line. So it's really funny actually because. We've tried because we clip the show, so we clip some of the craziest bits from the show each week, because it's essentially it's a comedy show. We talk about politics, we talk about conspiracies, sometimes we talk about current events, but at the end of the day we're just mocking everything.
Yeah, you're like South Park.
So we clip, yeah, like South Park. But they don't like the way that we do it. So every time that we try to boost one of our ads or whatever, or pay for people to actually see one of our videos that aren't subscribers, YouTube rejects it every single time.
Oh yeah.
And they come up with a different reason every time, and it's gotten to the point where it's funny, and I try to apply for it just to see what they come up with next. They said we were trying to do election advertising. I think it was because we made fun of Joe Biden sniffing children.
Why? You can't talk about possible candidates because it might be election advertising. That's crazy.
No, you can't talk about Joe Biden.
Basically.
Especially can't talk about Joe Biden being a pedophile.
Which he is.
So they said that allegedly. Yeah. And then they said that we were election advertising in the UK. I think it's because we had somebody with a British accent that week.
Jesus.
Then they hit us with shocking content, which I was really proud of.
Yeah, that is
shocking content.
I've never gotten shocking content. That's not fair.
Yeah. We've gotten that one a few times.
Man, that's something to aspire to.
But they did approve one of our clips, and it was actually two of our clips. And one of the clips was a guy going around as a vigilante, fake superhero that was a cop that was making sure that everybody was staying inside during the whole COVID nonsense. And if he caught somebody outside walking their dog or something, he went and he beat him up and he tasered him. Now, I think that's pretty shocking. Yeah. But they let us run that one because I think that they were co-signing it.
Yeah, because they're go along with the bad cop narrative. That's what we like right now. There's so many.
Yeah, they're oh, that's a good idea. We should beat the shit out of people that aren't social distancing.
Yeah. Bad sheep.
And the other one was worse. It was a guy kidnapping people, and they were yeah, we really love that.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing the things they're totally okay with and the things they're not. They're all this, for a while it was YouTube Kids was just pedophilia related content and nobody was doing
nothing but. Yeah.
Everything else is fine.
Yeah, everything's fine, as long as it's, pedophilia and mind destroying pornography. They're great with that.
You have to wonder too, obviously it's intentional at some level, but are the little minions carrying it out? Are they that duped that they're just yeah, this is good, that pedophilia one's fine, and this one about this funny show is no, that's not allowed. They're totally do they buy it or do they just do what they're told?
I think it's a mix. I think it's some of the people they are just true believers. They believe whatever nonsense that the mainstream media or Susan Wojcicki or whoever tells them it's cool, and other people just do whatever the bots tell them to.
Yeah.
So if the bots are oh no, we saw a picture of Joe Biden, and he was sniffing a kid. That's bad.
And I think
It's like, well, the bot said, reject it.
And I think the bots are
I'm a
way
slave to the
more-
bot.
Yeah. I think the bots are way more advanced than we know. I mean, or than most
yeah.
of us really like expect them to be. I don't know. There was the other day, you know how they started a while ago like grouping the people you may know suggestions on Facebook, and they seem to be grouped by like shape and color almost.
Yeah.
And then like for a while it was like the content of the post might be grouped similarly, so you might see like 5 in a row about, I don't know, healthcare or something.
It would be random stuff. Like
Yeah.
you'd see like somebody like riding a horse or something. It's like, oh yeah, I'm at a farm, I'm riding a horse. And then the next one will be like, yeah, go Broncos. And there's a
Yeah.
picture of like the Broncos mascot.
Yeah. And those kind of made sense to me. I'm like, well, you're like looking at visually. I guess this one does too. It's not that much different, but it just kind of weirded me out because the other day I saw 2 posts in a row that were an animal on top of something else's back, whether a human or another animal. And I was like, that's pretty specific because there were all 4 different creatures. They were totally different shapes, but like do you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
way more context needed to understand what's happening in those photos than the sort of other ones I had been seeing. And I was like, wow, they just jumped up a level.
Well, I remember seeing this like, it's probably been like 5-6 years ago at least. It was when the internet would still be slow sometimes, and like you'd have to wait for like the picture to load every once in a while. And sometimes instead of the picture, it would show like a description,
Yeah.
and it would say like, like human, riding animal, 4 legs.
Yeah.
And it's like, where did they get that from? That's AI like learning. And now they're, they got it. They're in our heads now.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing that was funny when they came out with the, you can always report the posts or report the ads, which I try to report every ad unless it's like an actual local small business. I don't report those. But, the options you can choose while you're reporting it was always like violence or sex or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then they added knows too much. And it wasn't a
Yes.
joke, and it's still there. And I because for like a week I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. And I'm like, oh, they really want to know if we think it's too much. Like, that's creepy.
Yeah, but like I don't like when I first saw that, I was like, oh yeah, they do know too much, because I was thinking about pancakes, and now I see an ad for the IHOP, and watch, I'm gonna get an ad for fucking IHOP as soon as we get off.
IHOP and
but like,
horses.
yeah, but like I don't want to click the knows too much because I don't want to like tell them when they're on the right track.
That's exactly why.
So like I always just click something else.
I always click sexually inappropriate, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and there's some bot out there is like, yep, we're doing it right.
Yeah.
We
Some bot is like, I also find that appealing.
How about the fact that like you can't share anything remotely featuring any kind of violence? Like if I show a video of like a 6-year-old kid kicking his little brother in the nuts, they'll put that thing on top of it where you can't see it unless you click that it's okay because it might contain violent content.
I have not
And
noticed
yet,
it that much.
They really crack down on on violence. Well, I know because I do the pro wrestling, so every once in a while we do, because I also Full Throttle Pro Wrestling, get the plug in. once they let us start running shows again, but every once in a while I'll try to like share a clip or something, and it'll have a guy doing a wrestling move, and it'll put a block on top of it, and it'll just be like, hey, this may contain violence. Click this button if you're okay with seeing shocking content or whatever.
For like wrestling.
Yeah, or for like little kids hitting each other, like America's Funniest Home Video stuff. And yet, how many like cop killings have we seen on Facebook go viral?
And that fucking live streamed murder.
Yeah.
I was like, that was so shocking for me. I was like,
why don't they block that shit?
Yeah. Because
they want us to see it.
They wanted to start a fucking communist revolution. I find it amazing that the Black Lives Matter creed is like almost nothing to do with black people specifically, like there's a lot you could address with just looking at black people, just looking at African Americans in the United States and their needs, but instead it's like a communist manifesto. And I'm like, this isn't about black people.
No, it's not about black people, it's about red people, like communists.
Yeah.
It's about using people to push an agenda. And it's obvious because you see all the people doing the rioting and like the loot. Like, sure, of course, there's some of them there's a large element that's actually people that live in the neighborhoods that want to see if they can get some new kicks or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's mostly a bunch of these like supposed anarchists and like deranged communists and like just showing up and wrecking shit.
It's like the Black Bloc, which the Black Bloc has always been most likely agent provocateurs. I've never, because you don't know those people before the protest and you don't see them again after, but like you know everyone else if you're organizing, so they've almost always been that. And then we've got Antifa in the mix, which are probably at the very least like infiltrated by agent provocateurs. And then
at the very least, they're just useful idiots. They're violent people that are steered in a certain direction, but a lot of them are, and they don't hide it, they're actual like basically card carrying communists, and they think that this is their way to get a revolution.
Yeah.
So they go in and they destroy the black neighborhoods, and they say they're doing all this mayhem for the black people, when honestly, there's not real discrimination in this country in the last 3 decades or 4 decades.
Well, and honestly, it's nice to hear that from a person of color, because I think a lot of people of color feel that way and have said that. But I think when I say it, a lot of people are like, "Fuck you, Whitey," and I'm like, "God damn it. Damn this."
Oh yeah, well they say that to me too.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Let me tell you how downtrodden you are, how offended you should be that that you can do whatever you fucking want in this country.
Let me tell you your experience, okay?
Look here, Lyndon Johnson has been trying to keep you people from having families or having jobs or producing anything of value or not being in prison since the 1960s. Don't you go off, being intelligent or fucking living for yourself.
Don't you go off having your own opinions? Don't you? I hate how convenient it is, right? With the looting and stuff, it was like, you don't tell people how to express the 400 years of anger. And I'm like, okay, I guess I don't get to have an opinion. And then they're like, with this, everything you're saying right now, they're like, Uncle Tom, you hate yourself. You're like, fuck. Like, there's like nothing you can say because there's a really ignorant comeback to all of them. None of them.
Oh, that's why they like to put people in nice little like easy compartments, because if your skin color or your mother's country of origin or your sexual orientation or any of that other bullshit defines who you are, then it's really easy for them to puppet you.
Yes.
And then they just use you as a voting block, or they use you to push something more nefarious.
Way more nefarious.
Yeah. So this is fun. This last few weeks has been really hilarious for me, especially after they spent 2 months telling us that if you go have a picnic,
you're gonna die.
Then you're gonna kill everybody in town.
Yeah, you're a grandma killer, you evil fuck. Like now,
Jesus.
But now everyone go out. Massive amounts of people, shoulder to shoulder, go out and stand in the streets together and scream. Spittle just flying. Just that's a good idea.
Like, I mean, if you buy the whole virus thing, I mean, there's literally nothing you could be doing save, I don't know, an orgy or something where you're more likely to spread germs than going. Like, did you see like in Brooklyn the other day, they had like 15,000 people crammed into like 3 city blocks.
Yeah. Were they all wearing white shirts too?
I didn't notice that. I just noticed there was a sea of people. Like they were like crammed in.
Yeah.
And they're all angry. It's the middle of the summer, so they're sweating, they're yelling. I don't give a shit if they're wearing a mask. I mean, those pieces of cloth aren't gonna do anything for you anyway.
No.
And then they're telling people like, if you go to a restaurant, you have to be 6 feet away from everybody. You need to bathe in antibacterial hand sanitizer, between every French fry that you eat. And you're still probably going to die.
Yeah.
You selfish bastard. And then at the same time, like, it's not even that they were doing that and then a week later they're like, oh, never mind, everybody's okay, we were wrong. They're just like, okay, you people over here that believe in like freedom and believe in, having the right to live your life as you choose, you people stay inside because you're a cancer, you're going to get everybody sick.
And you're racist.
The communists. Yeah. It just knows. It scans you and it says, "Oh, no, you're a rabble rouser for Antifa, so you're immune, and you can't spread it to anybody."
Well, it's been, yeah, and it's very interesting that for somehow all of those protesters who wanted to open things back up and were like, all right, even if this was real, it's like fine now, like let's let our economy thrive again. Somehow they were all racists because one person showed up at each of them somehow with a Confederate flag, which we could also talk about whether or not it's racist, but like that was enough to make everyone be like, everybody who wants to open up is racist. I'm like, everybody's stupid. Like, if you're
right.
dumb, like, oh my God, how can that be? How simple it is.
And the best part is, it's like, what is racist or hateful or offensive at all about saying, hey, you can choose to do what you want with your life and your body and your family. And I just want to be able to go back to work and, feed my kids.
Yeah.
And be able to pay my bills so I don't get evicted once this is all over. Yeah, like who's falling for this shit? I know people are afraid to be called a racist or a sexist or homophobe or whatever, but like Jesus, just when you see people, it's like the boy who cried wolf, like when they're digging into that well so often, it makes it so, like with the guy in Minnesota, the cop that killed that 5-time felon or whoever he was. It's like there's no evidence that was well, this one, yeah, George Floyd this time, but the other guy too. But it's like, okay, there was no evidence that killing was racist. It was a cop that was violent.
Yeah.
It was maybe excessive force, maybe not. I mean, there's a lot you can weigh there, but maybe if you guys hadn't been screaming racist, racist, racist a million times when people are just trying to go to the fucking grocery store, then I'd be willing to like believe it more when something egregious happens. But if that's what you guys are always saying about everybody that you disagree with, then I mean, I'm never gonna believe it unless somebody is just doing something blatantly bigoted. But nobody fucking does that anymore because if everybody's so afraid to be called a racist that and barely anybody actually is.
Yeah. Yes, that's like exactly it. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday, the day before, somebody called me a white supremacist because I was just trying to point out, and I don't fucking like the Confederate flag. I just at some point in my life learned that there are people who value the Confederate flag and the history of the sort of South, and their stand against not for slavery, but some people actually stood against the consolidation and the centralization of power. And I just try to point that out. The same thing
that's letting Gretchen, whatever the fuck her name is, up in Michigan, keep her people imprisoned.
Yeah,
that's the same thing that a lot of the people during the Confederacy were fighting for. It's states' rights, the right to do something stupid that the rest of the country thinks is moronic, but maybe your state agrees with or they're allowing.
Exactly.
Like, I mean, less than 1% of the people in the South had anything to do with owning slaves.
Wow, I didn't even know that number. That's amazing.
Well, I mean, you got to think about, well, for one, I think like something like a third of the, yeah. But I mean, if you look at any flag, if you look at any, any nation, any region's heritage, you can find plenty of objectionable stuff about it.
True that.
You can find plenty of slavery that was going on decades after the Civil War ended in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
Most of those people flying the Confederate flag, I mean, sure, with some of them, it might have, especially with the way things are going lately, it might have something to do with, they want to have pride in their, their whiteness or whatever the case may be. Mostly it's just a Southern thing.
Yeah.
These are people that are proud that they're from the South and, they like drinking Busch Light and watching NASCAR or whatever the fuck. And they're not exactly students of history.
No, that's my point. I'm like, I'm not even defending it. I'm just pointing out that I once was ignorant to it. And so I find it fascinating to share with people. Like, did you know that that this exists? Because I also was conditioned to believe that it can only mean racism and anybody carrying it is a actual hater of black people, especially,
right,
and maybe also other colors. And then I learned this, and then I learned also that General Lee actually was against racism or slavery.
Well,
he wrote about
it.
I
mean, he was. I don't think he was in favor of slavery, but he was a world-renowned general for his tactics. I mean, he was. If you study history, if you study military history, he was a great general. There's a reason that these guys were able to last as long as they did.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and I'm not even saying I like him. I'm just saying, like, isn't it fascinating that he was against slavery?
Yeah. Somebody that's that notable. I mean, we're only on this planet for such a small speck of time. I mean, if I don't care if you're evil in a lot of people's eyes, I don't care if you've committed atrocities. If you've made your mark and you've actually done something on history, you shouldn't be forgotten.
Yeah.
Because there's something to be learned from anything in history.
Yes.
And then you got these freaking iconoclasts going around tearing down anything that they see that's made out of stone. Like, where are we going to be at 50 years from now?
Yeah.
And like, what's happened in the last 150 years, like since the Civil War? I mean, for all we know, we don't even know what actually went down back then, because they maybe destroyed other monuments and other histories. And for Christ's sake, I mean, maybe we don't even know the real story of the American South because they didn't win.
That's a really good point, dude. Yeah, it's a really good point. We don't know. And then, like you're saying, if they removed a bunch of context and content that we don't have access to, and then we know that, I mean, what if they even had the plan that long ago to foment this like racism over all these years to the point where now it's going to explode and tear down the entire structure?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely it's proven, especially the last couple months, it's proven to be a really effective card to pull.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was something as simple as like the Confederate flag. I mean, if they got to destroy every instance of that because it's a symbol of hate, like, I mean, what are we going to do about the Union Jack? What are we going to do about our flag? The U.S. flag. I mean, you can point out plenty of things that we've done that a lot of people take objection to.
Yeah.
That's just
genocide.
Yeah, like that was. I mean, that destroyed a lot of lives, and it's just part of civilizations. I mean, sometimes they're going to come to blows, and one side's going to win, and the other side's going to lose. But with a conquering society, I mean, there's also a lot of good that happens too, and there's a lot of heritage, and there's a lot of things that get built, and I wouldn't want to just erase things and forget about them because I feel hurt by it, because maybe somebody 3 or 4 generations ago was on the other side of it, on the losing end of it. Like nobody around today knows anybody that was involved in the goddamn slave trade.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing that I think about with, but I want to say too that, we kept the Holocaust places, fucking,
yeah.
Sometimes I lose my words. The concentration camps, we kept them around so that we could learn from that, right? Like,
yeah, no, I've been to one of them.
Oh,
I mean, it's haunting. It definitely carries some weight, like when you see like some of the things that you see in there. But I mean, I wouldn't want to wipe that off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason that people get so angry when you talk about like, no, I don't know if we want to go down this road, but like when you question certain parts of that narrative.
Right.
But I mean, it's because they don't want you to forget the story. They don't want you to forget it because they don't want, the next time, somebody gets a wild hair up their ass and wants to wipe out half the earth.
Yeah. Well, and it is, I keep bringing up 1984 because there's this point where Winston not only can't find any record of anything because he himself has helped to destroy it all and understands that the party has destroyed it all, but he also can't find humans living who remember anything concrete about the past. Like, no, all memory is gone and there's no way to relearn it. And that is a scary future to consider coming into being. But I want to go back to the fact that no one today experienced any of these things that we're talking about 400 years ago or however many 100 years ago or even a few decades ago. Most people who are part of the era of the 60s they're not really like up in the center of things right now informing our society and our view, and so given that, I wonder what you think about the move for reparations.
I mean, I don't even know logistically if, like, let's say that you agree with the idea of it.
Right.
Well, for one, you got to start defining people, and how the hell are you going to define people?
Yeah.
Like, who is? Yeah, like so one, you got to figure, okay, so you're really, if they ever do any kind of reparations, which would be idiotic, really it would just be another trick for the government to take money
Yeah.
from as many people as they can and put it into their own pockets.
And get
Um,
more voters who are happy to.
yeah, it's just about controlling voter blocks and making people dependent and telling people that they can't, forge their own path in life and that they're a victim.
Yeah.
But I mean, how for one, who's black and who's white?
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about people that are mixed and that sort of thing. Just who's European? Who was, especially when you go back to like 1863 or whenever the Emancipation Proclamation was. It's like that's going back a lot of generations. There's a lot of Irish people in this country. There's a lot of people that have immigrated from Italy. There's a lot of people that have immigrated from all over Latin America that technically are considered white, and their family wasn't even fucking living here in the 19th century.
Eastern Europe.
And then there's a lot of and then there's a lot of black people who they wouldn't have had anybody in their line here at that time either. Whether they immigrated from, I don't know, from the Caribbean, from Africa, from fucking Europe. Like there's plenty, there's people living in all over the world with different skin tones. And then you start looking back at most people, it doesn't take more than a generation or two before you can start seeing other shades in your family tree.
Right.
So who are you going to choose to receive these reparations? How are they going to prove it?
And who are you going to take it from?
And who are you going to take it from? Well, they're going to take it from everybody.
Yeah.
And they're going to give it to people politically.
Yeah. Because if you were going to say, actually figure out if there was some super elite families and you were going to take the money from them and give it to, all of us, because also, I could make a case that most of us have been enslaved in some way in our, family.
We're enslaved now.
We're enslaved now, yeah. But even if you, want to go to a more traditional type of slavery, I think a lot of us could go back and, however many generations and find probably we had some going on, too. So yeah, who are you going to take it from? Who are you going to give it to?
There's not a civilization on the planet that's never been conquered.
Yeah.
I mean, in one sense of the word or another. I mean, I don't know. Maybe China. You'd have to go. Oh no, you don't have to go that far back. There's
China
World War II.
Itself.
Japan conquered China in World War II. So yeah, I mean, anywhere you look on the planet, you're going to find people living there that they weren't originally there. That's just being an animal.
That's just how things go, yeah.
But what are you going to do going forward? Are you going to rely on the government giving you money so you can sustain your life? And are you going to rely on them, or are you going to be enslaved to them? Because once you're on that entitlement trap, then that's who you're dependent on for your sustenance. That's why you talk about the black community. That's why it's such a mess now. It's because of the war on poverty and all that bullshit that Johnson did 50 years ago. So reparations, if they ever do something like that, it's going to be more than just trying to, buy some votes. It's going to be trying to maintain control over large swaths of the population for decades.
Ugh. It's like everything that I'm like, well, have you really thought this through? Have you thought about how it's actually going to work out? It's usually the answer is no, I just think it's right. And so I want to fight for it. And it's like, well, that's why it's never going to go well. But I want to also touch back on that, a lot of African-American people, I mean, are they even African-American? I don't even fucking know. A lot of black people are not actually descended from slaves like you were saying. And in fact, there was a point up until I think I was 20 something before I had, in my personal life, work and whatever, I had all kinds of connections. But the vast majority of black people I knew were from Africa. There's a whole family of people who moved. There's 2 whole families of people who moved and were part of my age group. And all of them were actual Africans. And then another one of my close friends, his father moved here from Africa, and his mother, I think. Either way, African. And we even got in a fight once about whether or not, that was African American, because My understanding was that African American was a specifically like American, culture.
I think in that case it actually would be.
Yeah, in that case it's like more.
Yeah, I think like 95% of the time it's like, no, I mean, have you ever been to Africa? Like, you know anybody that's ever been over there?
How many
But,
generations back? Yeah.
Yeah, I think if a white dude from Johannesburg moves to America, he's an African American. More than I have. I mean, I've been a lot of places. I've never been to Africa.
That's a really funny point. Yeah, our words are all messed up too. And then I have this with students a lot. Students will say like, because I'll say black or whatever, and they'll be like, isn't that racist? And I'm like, well, do you know black people who call themselves black? And they're like, yeah, but aren't we supposed to not say it? I'm like, if someone is black and I say black and it offends them, they can tell me and I'll stop. But I don't know why like it would be racist. Some people don't like African American, and like, I don't know. What do you want, you know? I think Cordezi Tom is going to come on tomorrow, and I don't know if we're going to talk about this stuff or not, but he prefers brown, and I want to hear why brown is better than black. So there'll be one more thing thrown into the mix. But it's like, if someone's going to attack you because of your verbiage without asking you what you meant or asking you if you would use another word because they like it better, then that person's got fucking issues, and I don't really care for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if somebody's like that, and I've seen it, I've seen people that do that, not just like when it comes to like race, but just in general. I mean, you see it a lot now, like with people in like the LGBT community, like, and I mean, it's evolved so much that I can't keep up with it. I'm not in that community. I don't really know a lot of people that are. So like, if I see somebody and I call them she, because it seems like a woman, and then like they think I'm hating them because I'm supposed to call them or something like that. I mean, I think it's similar to an extent. That's a little different because in that case it's something that is a little bit more of something that they chose to do. But like if somebody's just using a descriptive term and it's not known as being like an epithet, and you take offense to it, it's because you've been conditioned to see yourself as a victim, see other people as hating you. And like you're looking for evidence of that, basically. But if you're treating everybody like you treat anybody else, and you say something that rubs them the wrong way, then they can correct you, or just take it in stride. If somebody mispronounces my name or something, I take it in stride.
Totally.
I don't think that it's part of an agenda.
It's like I freaking hate the word kiddo. Like I hate it. I don't even know why. I just hate that word. And so Johnny calls me kiddo all the time. Hey, kiddo. I'm like, But
does he do that because he knows that you don't like it?
Yes, he does. But it's fun. But yeah, I also hate being called hun by almost anyone. There's like certain older men and women, I guess, more, if for some reason men can do it more. It's just weird. It's like there's no rhyme or reason. So how could I expect anyone to know that like I don't want to hear the word kiddo, or no one should call me hun?
Right.
You have to tell people these things if you care.
Yeah, I mean, they don't, especially if it's a stranger, they don't know you. They don't know your background. They don't know your experiences. I mean, and so many people these days are just constantly looking for a reason to get offended. And what it actually ends up doing is having the opposite effect. And it gets to a situation where a lot of people are just like, I don't give a fuck what offends you anymore.
Yeah.
I would have, maybe 10 years ago, I would have been a lot more open. I would have been a lot more understanding. But now it's like, you can't even give somebody a thumbs up without them thinking it's some kind of a hate symbol.
Yes.
Like, okay, at this point, I want to piss you off. Fuck you guys.
Well, it's like we were saying before, like that now that I've been called a white supremacist and, everyone is a racist, like what happens when we have because we do have actual racism somewhere, like we were saying,
right.
It's not actually that common. I don't see it that often,
I mean, it's rare, but I mean, yeah, it's there.
But then it doesn't mean as much now. If something actually happens, we're like, wow, that's pretty racist. It's like, well, so is everything, right? So why does it matter?
Yeah. Yeah, so was you not putting enough freaking sugar in my coffee at Starbucks yesterday, you fucking Klansman.
So racist of you. Did you assume because of the color of my skin that I don't like sugar?
It's just so crazy when I see people and I think it's just so demeaning when, if anything negative happens to somebody that happens to be supposedly from like a minority group or worse what's the worst term than a minority group? What do they call it? Like, not oppressed people, but they say something like that.
Oh.
They say like, oh yeah, those are from less advantaged people.
Disadvantaged groups.
Disadvantaged. Yeah, so something like that. They're disadvantaged people. So like, you know, if I'm walking to the grocery store and somebody swerves and they hit my car, it might just be because he's a bad driver.
Yeah.
You know, it probably is just because he's a bad driver. But in this climate, for all I know, the fucking newspaper is going to publish a story tomorrow saying, you know, Jay was hit by a car because a white supremacist didn't like that a black man was driving down the street.
Yeah. And then you're going to be
like
sitting at home watching the news, and they're going to be like, and then he died from COVID. It was crazy. And you're going to be like, what?
Yeah.
I'm right here.
They would have said that George Floyd died from COVID if they weren't trying to make such a big deal out of it.
True. Dude, what do you like about...
Technically, they should have said it based on the way they've been doing things. He had COVID when he died.
For real? Oh, really? So, yeah.
Yeah, you didn't hear? Yeah, well, the autopsy, you know, I don't know how reliable it is. It's Dr. Baden, but yeah, the autopsy said that he had coronavirus.
Huh. That's funny.
Yeah.
Did you notice that nobody was wearing their masks in that video?
Yes.
What do you
No
think about
masks. I mean... maybe if it was around here, I could see it, because there's in Florida, there seems to be less people buying into it, at least where I'm at.
Yeah.
But still, if I go to the grocery store, I'm going to see like at least like 1 out of 3 people are wearing some kind of mask. And if it's somebody that's part of the machine, like a public official, like a police officer, you're definitely going to see it.
Doesn't it seem like it?
Or if you're going to see 10 people on a video screen, you're going to see somebody with one on, or with one around their neck, or with some gloves on.
Yeah.
You're not just going to see everybody just, you know, out there, no mask in it.
Then I wonder, when did this happen? What if this happened like 7 years ago? What if it didn't even happen? I don't know.
They've probably been sitting on it for a while. I saw something on the, I wish I had a link handy, but I saw something where, because this guy, George Floyd, he grew up in Texas. He lived in Houston his whole life. He was constantly in and out of jail and prison down there. And then all of a sudden at like 40-something years old, he gets out of prison. He just decides to move up to Minneapolis for some reason. Like one of the nicer metro areas in the country, one of the more expensive, and one that I wouldn't think a guy from Texas would necessarily want to live in for 10 months of the year.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of getting off the point. So I saw on the internet that a guy that used to be his lawyer, his attorney, said that he was at his cremation like 3 or 4 years ago, and that he's already dead.
So yeah. So then like, was it like completely just a deep fake using people who are all dead, maybe? Because then no one can like, I don't know.
And better than a crisis actor, right? They can't say anything. they can't be spotted somewhere or laughing inappropriately. But I mean, for all we know, like, because and we can see who's trying to benefit from all this nonsense. You know, they're trying to push Biden over the finish line, or somebody representing that group. I mean, it's yeah.
Like barely alive.
I mean, it's weekend at Biden's. Yes. But you can see a lot of speculation out there that in 2016 they were actually going to play the riot card, where they were going to try to set off riots nationwide in order to introduce martial law, suspend the elections, help Hillary get in charge. And then I think they just got a little bit overconfident and they thought she was going to win. They didn't have to destroy the country first. But I mean, I don't really see how all of this has benefited the Democrat Party, considering all the really fucked up stuff keeps happening in places that they control everything. Yeah. So it's like if I'm in Minnesota and I'm like, okay, so this dirty cop has been in trouble 17 times for beating people up, and the attorney general didn't do shit about it, who's a Democrat, and the mayor didn't do anything about it, who's a hardcore Democrat, the governor, state senate, the House of Representatives, our national senators and House representatives, like everybody there is all from the same party. And there's some of like the most extreme, like left Democrats too. Like they're not like centrist at all.
Yeah.
I'd be like, you know what? If these cops are over here killing everybody with impunity, and if everybody's living in such horrible conditions in my community, maybe I shouldn't take this as a reason to go like vote harder for the people that are already in charge.
Yeah. Dude, but that requires thinking and it requires being critical of yourself, because maybe you missed it in the past, or then you might have to admit like, oh wow, I was not right before. And those things are really hard for people to do right now, or maybe always, but seemingly right now.
Most people they're so distracted nowadays that they don't have time to do any kind of research or do any kind of thought, or certainly any kind of introspection, because you're too busy trying to survive, for one, but you're also too busy trying to get those likes and too busy trying to level up in your fucking mobile game or whatever the case may be.
Pokemon
and
Go.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, do you really have enough time to like challenge deeply rooted, things that are now generationally passed down, like whether or not you should vote a certain way, or whether or not you can trust what they're saying on the news or in the newspaper or in your Facebook feed? Like, it says right there, fact check false. Why would I take the time to go on DuckDuckGo? Like, do I even know what that is?
Yeah. No, it is really hard to not be distracted by all that. It's true. That's why I always go back to feeling kind of sorry for people. And it's why I keep trying to like share, like, hey, did you know that General Lee, or whatever it is that I decide to share, that people are like, fuck you, I hate you, you white supremacist, and unfriend me. And I'm like, okay, bye. Like, and I think it's sad, but I think people believe that I actually will like change my mind because they screamed and unfriended me. But I'm like, no, I don't care at all. Like, you can go if you don't want to be my friend. That's cool. Like, I'm fine. And same with the show. People will be like, well, I don't agree with that, and so I'm not going to watch anymore. I'm like, okay, bye. Like, I don't care at all. I would love it if more and more people wanted to watch and come chat and like do whatever, but it's not my life goal,
Yeah, I mean, it's sad, but it seems like we're kind of reaching a point in our culture and in society where people just won't change.
Yeah.
Like, they won't even accept that they could be misinformed about something, or that they might not have all the information.
Yeah.
If it's something that seems like it's contradicting what they're supposed to believe, then they're just going to like turn you off and like cut you off before, like, I don't know, before you reveal something that tells them that they were wrong all this time. I mean, I'm not easy to be dissuaded or anything like that, but I am willing to change my mind about things when presented with new information.
Yeah, I love learning new things.
At the very least, I'm willing to like look at new information.
Yeah.
And like, if you looked at me like 15, 20 years ago, I would have held a lot of different beliefs and convictions than I hold now, because I was given different information. But I don't know how many people are like doing that anymore. Like, obviously there are some people, there's a segment of people that are hungry to find, to get to the truth of things, or to learn or to grow. But most people are just so dead set on, being wherever they are right now, that's like, just like you said, like, if you say anything that triggers them, it's just, fuck you, go to hell, unfriend, block, and hope that they never see you again, which is just, it's sad.
It is sad. It's like, cue the name calling, cue the cancellation, and move on. And it is, I do see some people, and those people give me hope, and then so that's why I keep trying, even though it's like bashing my head into a brick wall. Especially when we have that dynamic of, it's like, not very many people are actually in it to listen, or talk. They're just in it to be like, they're just like waiting. They're like, okay, when I'm gonna drop this, bam, I did it, I rule. Like, and you're like, that's not a conversation actually. And
right,
if you want to talk, I'll talk about literally anything. But if you want to just like wait to scream at me harder about something later, like, this is not a fun game that we're playing, and it also isn't productive at all. But Yeah, why wouldn't you? What do you ever have to lose by just talking with somebody and figuring out what they think, you know? And I hate to keep going back to the Confederate flag thing, but like when I did learn that, I instantly was like, oh, now my database is updated. Like now I still am not, I still have it in my head like, well, there's probably a lot of racist people who fly it just because they're racist. I don't know. But I have it in my mind now that like it's possible that that person's not. So why would I judge, and why wouldn't I just talk to them if I care to know?
Yeah, and just like, and if they're willing to talk to you, if they're willing to have a conversation with you, then they might be a little deeper than you think.
Right.
Just like, you know, like the history and things like that. And you might, if instead of, you know, going back to the people that are going around trying to burn all the books right now, like if you crack open one of the books, if you say, okay, before I tear the statue down, let me figure out why they erected it in the first place.
Yeah.
Let me see why it's been up here for the last 200 years.
Yeah.
You might find something out that's really interesting. Because, I mean, you can find a reason to hate anybody that's ever lived, but you can usually find something that at the very least is fascinating as well. And then you're just, you know, you're building your knowledge base, you're making connections, you're more able to catch on to the patterns when we're in the middle of a large scale operation like we are right now.
Right. Yes, and you have all of that at your disposal. And like I have been saying too, like if you hate the statue so much still after all of that, after you've seen all the different perspectives about it and like read about it and learned about it, whatever, and you still are like, no, fuck this statue, it represents this and I hate it, put a little plaque next to it that says,
right,
like this represents this and it's bad and we should hate it. Like that's my 2 cents now. Or whatever. Yeah,
you know, you do all the research, you find out that something's evil. Like, do you really want somebody in the next generation to you know, to mimic all of that? Because, I mean, if you don't tell them why it was a mistake or why there was an issue with it, they're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're on a path right now where, especially as everything's becoming digitalized, you know, they're literally, I wouldn't be surprised within the next couple of years if they're actually finding an excuse to just go to all the libraries and round up all the books.
Yeah.
It's, oh, no, we don't need these anymore. We cataloged them all. It's on the internet. You know, Elon, he's got it on a microchip. Yeah. So, you know, in order to make some more space for carbon neutrality, we need to burn these books for the CO2.
Don't question it. It makes sense.
I would not be surprised if, you know, there's a Greta army going around burning actual books all over the world within the next couple of years. Dude. And then when that happens and they can change history with a couple clicks of a button, which frankly they already can. Yes. I mean, you probably saw it when you were a teacher. Like, I don't know what subjects you taught, but like those books are different from year to year to year.
Yeah. No, they are, and the way they're framed and the things that they bring up and the things that they don't, like, it changes a lot.
Yeah, and they take one event and it's going to look a complete different way depending on who is the one that's writing the textbook.
Right.
Well, what's going to happen when there aren't physical textbooks anymore? And they just go in there and they digitally alter everything. They erase everything they don't want you to see. And then we're only a generation or two away from people being complete drones. And we're practically there now.
Basically, yeah. And I mean, I've posited before, and it's my personal favorite theory of what the Mandela effect is them testing that sort of technology to see, like, if we change just this much, you know, and every electronic source that you can find has that version of it or whatever, then, you know, will people believe it or will they forget, or will there be enough evidence to disprove it, or, you know, this sort of thing. They're like, get it better and better each time that they throw a Mandela out into the mix. But but also there's that 1984 book did you hear about that disappeared from everyone's Kindle or whatever? Yeah,
they took it off of the Amazon library.
It was for like a supposedly benevolent reason.
Animal Farm too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they took Animal Farm in 1984 out of everybody's. It might have been the Kindle, yeah.
But didn't they just do it to like update something and put it back on? But like it wasn't like it's not permanently gone, right?
No, this is a few years ago. This was
yeah.
But it made the news because people noticed. I mean, if you've got a library of books and then, you know, you're living in basically Orwellian
Yeah.
society day by day, getting more and more like 1984. When you look in your Kindle and it's not there
It's not
anymore,
there.
like, I mean, they could say it's because they wanted to do some updates, but they might have just been sending a little bit of a message.
Yeah. Well, and either way, it shows us what they can do, right? Like even your private collection on your offline, possibly some of the time, or maybe most of the time, devices can still be fucked with. Like they retain.
Oh, we're never offline. We might think we're offline.
Right.
We might not have paid our internet bill. We might be in the middle of the woods, but I mean, they can get to you. They made that pretty clear. You know, they're smiting people from freaking satellites in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they can take something off of your, your iPhone.
For sure. And then yeah, if we have them printed out and have the books, if they're gonna cause this much chaos with just one event, I get it. Like
They'll shut down our power grid. We're gonna need our to burn our books for fuel.
Yeah, dude. That was just like the plot.
I'm giving them ideas right now.
Yeah, we gotta stop.
Whoever was messing with our streams earlier, like they're just like taking notes.
Chad
Oh
is
shit,
out
that's
there.
a
He's
great
like,
idea. I didn't even think we could actually burn the books.
Yeah.
Yeah, this,
Hmm.
maybe if I'd read some books, I could have just taken that out of, Bradbury or whatever.
Nobody reads books anymore. That's what I wonder too, if those authors were, just really insightful and they saw the sort of trends of history and the sort of, trends going forward and put them together and was like, this is actually possible, and wrote those, or if they were, in the know and they're like Illuminati confirmed and they were like, here's literally our playbook and now so you can't say we didn't warn you, or, I always go back and forth.
See, there's like three ways that you could go about it, and I think it's a combination of them. I think one of them, because I mean, I've been in that mode before. I'm sure you've been in that mode before. Most of the people listening right now have probably been in the mode before, where you're just like in the zone, you're in tune. Maybe if it's when you're in a dream, maybe it's like you're writing.
Yes.
Maybe you're just like having a conversation and things just click.
Yes.
And like you could literally predict the future.
Yes.
I think that that's something that happens, but I think for the most part it's just people with imaginations or people that have discernment that can kind of sense patterns and see what is likely to happen, what could happen, see where things are going. And they might think that they're writing speculative, like science fiction, but they're really just kind of figuring out, the type of world we could be living in. Like, that's why I think when you look at like Orwell, like he lived in, I think he lived through in some communism, or he was experienced with being in a communist country or something like that. And he was like, oh, so this is what it's like under totalitarianism. Let me put that to fiction.
Yeah.
Like that's like with Ayn Rand, like she lived in Soviet Russia. She saw the beginning of that, and that was like all of her fiction. And you look at the world today and you can see a lot of that, especially with the science cult. And then in other cases, I think that the bad people that actually execute these plans, they literally take ideas from books telling us how horrible it could be, and they're like, oh shit, damn, we should try that.
Yeah. That's what I think too. I'm like, why did you guys tell them? And I love that Orwell and Huxley argued over like which one would be used or which one would be more effective, like with the carrot or the stick, because basically Huxley is like the carrot, everybody gets everything they need, and then Orwell's the stick, everybody gets beaten into submission. But I've always been like, it's going to be a combination of both, right? And here we are, and it is. They're like, here's all this money.
Yeah.
Here's all this money, and also, fuck you, you racist. Go back home. Like, Jesus.
It depends on, which one's going to be more effective depends on the individual, and it also depends on the society. Like, there's some countries that are, they're a lot more used to being told what to do. Like, you look back in their history and it's centuries and centuries of empires and, dictators and everything like that. So that's a country where you can have more of a forceful model. And then you look at a country like ours and you look at the history of America, and it's like, oh, these people need to think that they're free.
Right.
We need to just make these people think that, we're keeping them safe.
Right.
Make them think that it's voluntary. give them Facebook and, and they'll give up all of their privacy and their freedom, but they're going to think it's, something that's hip and cool.
Satisfies our cowboy mentality. Like,
yeah. But like
Wow.
we've very willingly given up, like, you look at our entire Bill of Rights, and just this year alone, it's just been put in a shredder. And
nobody cares for that.
Nobody, and like very few people care. And the people that do care, like they got, 90% of the people that they know and everybody in their family, it's telling them, hey, what are you doing? You're being a fool. You're killing everybody. How dare you go outside and breathe fresh air?
They call you crazy, and they call you all kinds of things to get you back in line. It's sad.
People, yeah.
That epigenetic memory, though, that you're right. Like the history of those people is gonna definitely influence that. It's in your culture and your blood, maybe. But we were talking about cults for a second, and I also wonder what you think about, the cult that seems to be growing up around this whole movement. It's very spiritual seeming, and I can't remember who, some thinker greater than I, or at least has a greater reach than I, was describing that it has all of these aspects of a cult, this Black Lives Matter movement specifically, and whether or not you agree with like the basic idea that racism is bad and Black people should have just as good of a life as anyone else or whatever. Like,
who doesn't agree with that?
Yeah.
They take the most simple like things that nobody can argue with, and then they hide a bunch of really evil shit that a lot of times is completely contradictory to what they claim to represent, and they hide that underneath it.
Yes.
Like I don't see a whole lot of people going around saying, yeah, you know what, my friends, my neighbors, my relatives, myself, those people, their lives don't matter because of their color of their skin. Like it was a different story. You go back, and it wasn't even, I don't even think it was as bad as people say with the majority of people, but it was a different story. You go back a number of decades.
Yeah, people are.
But nowadays, it's like, but you really think that people feel that way when they're like the most popular celebrities, all different kinds of races, but a lot of them are Black.
Yeah. True.
All these politicians, all these CEOs, all of the, I mean, any profession you can name. But like, I mean, these are people that literally, like, more than half the country voted for a fucking communist two cycles in a row. And a lot of them did it just because they're like, oh no, I don't hate Black people. I want to make sure everybody knows I don't hate Black people.
Or they literally were just like, I want to see a Black person president. Vote.
Yeah.
Like,
they're like, I'm sick of Black people. They have it so hard. I'm going to do that. Even though I don't agree with anything this man represents, I'm going to do it because, I don't want my neighbors and my friends to feel, downtrodden in this country anymore. And at the same time, they want us to think this is some kind of hateful, racist country. Like, it's a load of shit.
It is.
But like, I got way off of the point. But like, yeah, it's. I mean, the Black Lives Matter thing is such a cult. The COVID thing is such a cult. I mean, you look at these easy to chant slogans, these symbols. Yeah, outfits, the like getting on your knees.
Getting on your knees.
Like,
what the fuck?
What the fuck is that? And like the saying, like chanting that you can't breathe. Like that's, I mean, it's horrifying. It's not life affirming at all.
No.
And just like the COVID thing, covering your mouth. I mean, that's symbolic. It's showing, I can't speak.
Yeah.
It's basically showing defeat, giving up your rights. And that's what this is all about. And then, I mean, just like a cult, I mean, these people are lemmings. They're being led right into their own destruction, whether it's as individuals or as a nation. And everyone else is just saying, no, you can choose to live how you choose to live. You can be free. You don't have to hate. You don't have to think everyone's hating you. You don't have to be afraid to get within 6 feet of somebody. You don't have to be afraid to shake somebody's hand, give somebody a hug. Like, you don't have to be afraid of human beings.
Yeah.
But that's what a cult does at the end of the day. They tell you, you're in one group, everybody else is bad, and next thing you know, you're fucking drinking Flavor Aid.
Yes. And that we saw this too, like you said, with COVID, the cult basically begun, and they followed all those same steps of like, you cut off from everybody that the person knows, you isolate them, you like I don't remember all the steps, but you can look at them and they're all there. And then now we're in the stage of, emotional outpouring and whatever, I don't even know, like basically self-sacrifice, self-flagellation before the group or whatever. Like, it's getting creepy, man. And then when they all came out with their little slaver fucking raps.
That was hilarious, I thought.
I was like, what?
The congressmen, like these fucking, septuagenarian idiots. They're all corrupt. They've all been in power for decades. You can't find anything in their records of them actually helping anybody.
No,
you can find evidence. No, you can argue that they are actually enslaving people.
Yeah.
Like keeping them addicted to government assistance, fucking mandatory minimums, and keeping people locked up in prison for essentially their whole lives.
They
did
that shit.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah, like they have done all of these horrible things to those communities, and they didn't do anything else for the other people's communities either, but take our money. They just take our money, take our freedom, and trick us into electing them nonstop and getting more. These people are becoming like millionaires at a public service job, and then all of a sudden they're like civil rights leaders. Like if you really cared so much, you think you would have made things better in the last 40, 50 years? Rather than continually trying to hold people down, continually making things worse. But, then they can put on some fucking Kunta Kinte outfit and take a knee. I don't think anybody thought that was what they thought it was. I think if some people thought it was patronizing, other people just thought it was stupid.
It's pandering. You're like, you've never worn this before. You don't even know what tribe it comes from or whatever the fuck. You don't know what it means. You're going to put it on and kneel just for like a photo op. And then, like you said, you've never done anything actually. And where were you like last year when black people were being killed, or the year before that, or whatever the fuck is that? Like, why did you just now start caring so much that it made you go buy a Walmart fucking?
And how stupid do they think people are? Like that they're going to buy this fucking lie. That like, oh yeah, the cops, they hate their lives so much. They hate their fucking career so much that they're just literally out in the streets hunting people down because of what color they are. Yeah. Like Jesus, like and I saw the stats. It's crazy. It's like, and this is a problem in itself, but like over 10 million people get arrested in America, or there's over 10 million arrests in America every year.
Wow.
That's a lot of police contacts.
Yeah.
But when you look at like beyond the arrest, just like a situation where there's a police contact but they don't arrest you, it's like 3 or 4 times that many. So there's like tens of millions of opportunities for them to kill people.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the actual stats, and I mean it's bad. I don't think anybody should be killed by police, but you also got to think realistically. Yeah. Like just with black people, it's like something like 10 people a year that are unarmed that get killed by the police.
I think that's exactly it. Yeah.
And then when you see how many people are actually in the act of doing violence to someone else or to the police officer, or like for one, people are going to make mistakes. Yeah. And when they're equipped like fucking like military, when they're in war zones, essentially, I mean, shit's going to happen sometimes. But when you look at it statistically, it's such a drop in the bucket. And then you got these puppeteering assholes in Congress that want you to think that it's like, oh yeah, 1 out of 10 black men, and they're going to walk outside and they're going to get shot indiscriminately by a police officer one day.
I don't understand where that comes from. I'm like, I get it that, and I think there, just like we talked about earlier, I think there was a time when that was probably a lot more likely or true or relevant or whatever, and I think we're far from that time. And if all the statistics show that,
but they want us to go back to it.
Yeah.
Like I really think that these people that are going around talking about like Black Lives Matter and talking about justice this and justice that, I think they would really be happier if we went back to the time that we had segregation, that we had fucking Jim Crow, that we had people being lynched, that we had people that actually hated each other because of the accident of their birth or the pigmentation of their skin, because then we'd be easier to control. Yeah. And I don't mean like we as in black people or white people, just everybody would be easier to control because they'd be so consumed with hating other people on things that don't matter. That we progressed past that for the most part. I'd say we were, 99% across the finish line.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, that's not going to do because we've got these really, really evil plans that we're trying to put in place. And they're not going to work if people are, united and if they don't, if they're not that easily controlled.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And that's what I keep coming up with when I'm talking with these people who are so angry about everything and can't listen to anything at all. I'm like, don't you want to try to listen to people who you disagree with so that at the very least we can try to get towards unity? Because at the very least, can't you agree that this strong, hateful division is not serving anyone? And then they just call me a white supremacist again. So
yeah, no, it's like we're I feel that at least the messaging right now that is being allowed out there, like the messaging that's allowed to be on your social media timeline or allowed to be on television, it's like the Cultural Revolution.
Yes.
It's like the shit that they were doing in China. It's
Yes.
Destroy your elders, destroy your history,
Yes.
and basically you need Papa government. And what's crazy is I feel like it's not even people that are necessarily in control that are actually controlling us.
Yeah.
Which is really scary.
It's like Google execs and fucking Jeff Bezos
Yeah.
and shit. Yeah.
It's unelected people. It's corporations, and it's you can say deep state, but it's people that aren't even in positions of authority, or it's it's some asshole that has one district in California that they're going to win every 2 years because people there don't know anybody else, or because they're corrupt and they control the whole system. It's like, why is some goddamn congressperson control my life? That's not how the country was supposed to be set up.
Yeah.
And it'd be bad enough. And it is bad enough when it's your governor. It's bad enough when it's your president. But when it's like the CEO of Facebook or some asshole that used to work for Microsoft that
Yes.
isn't even in a public position, what the hell's up with that? That's all I gotta say there.
Yeah. And why are people so happy to go along with it? Bill Gates is a great, great man, and I've never looked for a fucking second past a few blips on the news here and there, but I love him. You're like, okie dokie. He's controlling your entire world right now. He's spraying the sky and making all the vaccines, and all your computers are fucking got Bill Gates in them. He's everywhere you are, but we don't fucking even really know about him. That's terrifying.
Yeah. And even if he wasn't most likely evil, even if he was a benevolent person, I don't want somebody with that much control
Yes.
over the world and over my life, at all. I don't want anybody with that much control. That's not how shit's supposed to work in the 21st century. We're supposed to put that way back in the past.
Well,
But
yeah. And it's sad. Someone today was mentioning one of the many places I looked for a moment, that their mom or their cousin or whoever had come from, a communist country to the United States, and was like, how the fuck can these people be clamoring for this? They don't know. And I'm like, this is the most common story that I hear is and Johnny's cousins and family came from the killing fields and Pol Pot, and they're like, yeah, no, we don't want communism. Anyone who's lived through communism is like, please God, no. And then everyone else who never has is like, please God, yes. And you're like, dude, there's a huge disconnect here. And this is one of those many times where it'd be really cool to go outside your group and outside everything you know and find the people who totally disagree with you because of lived experience or really good background knowledge or both, and talk to them and just figure out why they disagree with you. And even if you end up, like we said before, still disagreeing with them, at least you tried to understand the other side. Please do that.
Yeah, because there's a mountain of evidence. It's not a theory anymore. We're not in 1905. We're not in 1917. It's not. It's not a nice idea that some philosopher from Germany has that. Oh, hey, we're going to take care of everybody. It's oh no, this shit's been tried all over the world multiple times, and it's killed millions and millions of people.
Every time.
It's disenfranchised people. It's ruined lives, and it's ruined the quality of life for everybody living in these countries except for a handful of people that are in charge. And that's why they keep trying it. It's because those people are either already in charge and they want to consolidate their power and they want more power, or they're so fucking stupid or they're so brainwashed that they don't look at the evidence, or they're so evil that they think they're going to be put in charge. Like, I think that's what a lot of these Antifa idiots are, is I think they actually think that, you know, if there's a communist takeover, that their life's going to be made better. You know, they're going to be like given a point of power. You know, they're going to be on the Soviet. They're going to be in charge. They're going to be able to pick who to put in the camps and who to kill. But no, they're just an idiot. They're going to fucking die too.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what other things. Like, do you think you're not going to be a pawn in whatever comes next? You're a pawn now. You're going to be a pawn then. Like, that's all. That's the only choice you have, I think. You know, except unless you actually move towards freedom. But you know, when we rip down this structure, which is actually, like, the more I've thought and learned about it, the more I'm like, this was a pretty decent experiment we were doing here in the United States. And I kind of, like, respect it, you know, the ideals that we had and the structure we built to try to get to those ideals is, like, kind of cool. And
the foundation's really good.
Yeah.
It made sense. It's just the execution, you know.
Right. There's always something lost in the actual doing of it. Especially when you have a culture that's, you know, encourages irresponsibility. But it's interesting, too, that there's this Yuri something, this Russian guy. He's, like, in the KGB, allegedly, and this is, like, a couple decades ago, or maybe in the 70s or something. And he's doing some interview, and he talks about, like, well, oh, it's already done. We already took over your country. It'll just take a few decades for it to play out. But we've already got, like, the, you know, cultural pieces in place, and we've got our, like, people in your, you know, universities or whatever. And
that's where it started. Yeah, they took over the university system. I mean, you control the way people think and the type of information they have access to and what's considered an authority.
Yeah. And
you wield a lot of power. And it might not be tomorrow, but it's going to be there eventually. Because now we live in a society where, like, I see stories every day where there's just complete obvious nonsense being trotted out as fact and irrefutable. Like, you can't, like this climate change bullshit. Like, you can't even say, wait, hold on, this doesn't make sense. Or, hey, you were saying something completely different a decade ago, like contradictory. As, oh no, you're bad. You want to destroy the earth. It's you're wrong. Our theory's right. Give us money.
You're a racist.
But China's doing. Why aren't you talking to China? They're doing way more of this bad stuff. No, they're not.
Yeah.
No, they are. Like, you can go there. Like, you can still go there and see. No, you're wrong. And like this bullshit with the corona. Like, just, I mean, I could go on and on and on. Like, even like with biology now, when they say that there's fucking 800 genders or whatever, no, there's not. I mean, there's people, you can choose to live however you want, but when it comes down to biology, we've got a lot of history and a lot of proof that tells you that there's one type of scientific fact. No, you're bad. You're kicked out of the university and give another couple years and they'll put you in prison.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing I hear people screeching about, like, literally have told me, like, well, I can't wait till they arrest you or kill you or take you to the camps. I'm like, Jesus, we're not even there yet, and you're already plotting my demise. Like, this
because you're terrifying. The evil one.
I'm the evil one.
You're the evil, hateful person, so they need to kill you and imprison you.
Yes, yeah.
For your thoughts.
I'm evil and hateful, so they need to kill and totally. That makes sense, guys. Good job. Yeah, it's insane. And then, oh shit, I forgot the rest of what I was gonna say about that. So never mind.
Yeah, we're living it. We're living it now. So sad thing is, I don't really know anywhere else where we're supposed to go.
I know.
Like, I mean, I know it sounds bad to say, but I kind of feel like America was largely like unique from what was going on in the rest of the world, especially when you look at our foundation and you look at our history. And it's like, if we fall, I mean, where the hell am I going to go?
That's exactly what I've come to in my later years. Oh, that's what I was thinking. I could watch that progression we were talking about from whoever planted the seeds in the 70s, whether it was Russia or, you know, the Illuminati or whatever, to now, because when I was in university, I was totally a communist socialist, but I was at a school that was very, you know, Evergreen State College was very commie socialist. not every college was. And so I think I got like the earlier doses of it, you know, and so I've like gone through the whole rigmarole to get to where I am now. And so I see people spewing the exact same shit that I was spewing then. And they're like, no, you just weren't taught in school about black people enough. And so you don't know. And I'm like, oh God, no, I used to think that too. And that's not actually what happened.
But for the most part, I mean, maybe at Evergreen State, it was a little different, but at most universities, especially most respected universities, especially most state universities, like they've been teaching communist theology for a long time now, like for decades, before the damn Cold War even ended. But they didn't call it that. Like I would say, like before, like 5 years ago, people would say you're crazy if you said that there's a communist conspiracy, that there's actual people that are trying to institute communism in America, regardless of the fact that our own government, whether it's Obama or whether it's Bush, or even before that, are doing socialist policies,
true, left
and right. But people are out there espousing communist ideology. They're calling for it. They're thinking that it's moral and that's the only thing that's right. But until about 5 years ago, they were basically trained, not like ostensibly trained, but they knew not to call it socialism, not to call it communism. And then this Bernie Sanders comes around, and all of a sudden he's got them saying, okay, no, it's cool. We can say that we're socialists now. We can admit it. But we're democratic socialists. And now, like 5 years later, you get people that are saying, oh, no, we're socialists. It's cool. We think that socialism is moral and it's right. It's the way to actually help all the people. And, it's not selfish and cruel like, capitalism that kills people or whatever the fuck they say. 5 years from now, and we're already seeing it now with like some of these radical people in the riots and everything. But like 5 years from now, there could be people that are out there just, yep, we're communists. We're down with Marx. We're down with Lenin. We want the USSR, or more likely the CCP, right here in America. Like they're at the stage where they're willing to be out and about with it, and that's scary because that means that it's not too long until they need to start getting shot.
Seriously. It's the number of gun sales has gone up like, I don't even know, something like 300%, or maybe it was even 3,000. It was something so insane that I was like, wow. But it made me happy because I was like, good. Because like, if we need to defend against violent fucking, people, ideologues like rushing through our streets trying to rip everything down, then I'm going to be glad that there are some people with guns, hopefully, on the other side.
Because, I mean, they might have a generation, they might have 2 generations, but there are still more people in America that understand the value of private property and self-determination than there are people that want to just steal from someone that has more than them.
Do you think so? I hope so. That's what I hope.
I think so. I mean, because the majority of people, they want to build a better future for themselves and their families. They want they want to be an entrepreneur. They want to have work. They want to have a job. They value producing, and you see it when things aren't being manipulated by that small, powerful minority that controls the media, that controls most of the government, that controls these big tech companies. Most people just want to live their lives, and they want to live their lives as they always have in America. And that's why you see things like when shit starts getting weird, people are like, okay, look, I got to get a gun. Yeah. Okay, I got to look at getting out of the city because obviously the people who control these cities, they're too far gone. And I mean, I don't want to see it come to that, but I'd rather see it come to that than see, these scumbags try to enslave the population, try to put people in camps, try to kill people, try to re-educate people. I'd rather see people defend themselves.
Me too. And that gives me hope, that maybe not all is lost to the chaos that has been created and the sort of cultural foment that it has pushed upon everybody to the point where you kind of have to choose sides, and I hope that you're right and that a lot of people are choosing that freedom and self-responsibility, you know.
Yeah.
And maybe we get to keep this great experiment known as the United States going for longer if we can figure out how to affect that culture ourselves. I don't know.
Maybe we can just retreat a little bit and just give them the let them take like take Chud over at Capitol Hill. I've been calling it Chud because I know it was Chaz, and then they changed it to Chop. And now it's Chud. And I'm calling it Chud because I really like horror movies from the 80s, and I really like cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. And I feel like that's what awesome. A lot of the people there are. That's true. So I think they should just take Chud, and we should just say, you know what, you can have like the whole West Coast. It's cool. Yeah. It was beautiful at one point, but it's no longer. So
Edgar Cayce, what's his name? Fuck.
Edgar Cayce.
Yeah, he said it was gonna fall into the ocean anyway. So like, cool, go.
Yeah, Yellowstone's gonna blow at some point, and Chud's gonna get buried.
See, and I think you're right, because I think that these people are learning quickly that when you have just a free-for-all and you're like, we're not going to have rules or guns or police or anything, and we have a bunch of food and stuff, everybody come here, people are like, okay, yeah, I'll go there.
Yeah.
Like, give me your shit now. Bye.
And then like 2 days later, like, look at it. But of course, but yeah, just take all the people that want to live that way and just push them over there.
Yeah.
And we've got like some really big mountains. Just keep them on the other side. I like this plan. And we got plenty of room over here. You can fit the entire world's population in Texas.
See, and
you shouldn't, but you could.
This is the best way. This is the same way I was with Flat Earth. I was like, everyone should go question whether there's flat or not, because no matter where you come out in the end, you're going to be smarter afterwards. You're going to have like learned some math or like thought things through, and that's a good thing to do. And this is kind of the same, like, yeah, go join Chaz, go have your free-for-all, go see that like they have learned you actually do need border walls and security and rules and people that you hire to enforce the rules and all the same things we have over here. So maybe that'll send people out the other side going, oh shit, I guess like this was actually a pretty good way to do things. I'm done.
Yeah. Or they'll figure it out eventually.
Or
or maybe they'll get a Napoleon.
Yeah.
That's what.
Or they'll get like sick and start happens. Dying, and then we'll also have another example of why. This really
the real Corona.
Right. Yeah.
Somebody has to die from it, I guess.
Ugh. It's also interesting. Well, I am very shocked, Jay, that we made it an hour and a half, not even talking about any of the things we planned to talk about, but talking about a bunch of other shit instead. And it has been actually a really awesome episode. So I'm stoked.
Good conversation. We got a whole, Bachelor show prep in the back pocket.
Yes.
This was not what we planned on talking about today.
No, yeah. So if you didn't know that, that's true. We just randomly talked about all that shit off the cuff. And we do have that show coming up, and hopefully Monday or Wednesday, maybe, I think, are the days that we could possibly do it next week. So we might bring you the Clown World, Rat, Dragon, whatever, Synchro Mystic, awesome mashup of culture then.
I came to the fair for the backdrop and everything for the Clown.
I love it. That's awesome. But in the meantime, why don't you remind people where they can find more of your awesome, hilarious work?
Yes. So the War on Morons podcast, please check it out if you haven't. We do it every single week, Monday night at 7:00, and it's usually about a 40-minute show where we just make fun of everybody that deserves it. So it's not serious. It's not like a serious conversation like we had tonight. It's comedy taking on stupid politicians, stupid criminal stories, hypocrites in Hollywood, and just lampooning them mercilessly to the point where YouTube won't even let us advertise because they don't like what we do.
Which means we probably do like what you do.
So that means it's good, guys. That means it's good. Exactly. And then we've got a lot of really funny character comedy as well, with a really hot call-in line. There's a rotating cast of lunatics that are always calling in the show. And check it out. Go to our YouTube, search The War on Morons on YouTube. You can see some clips, check out some whole shows, or facebook.com/waronmorons.
Awesome. I love it. It's a hilarious show. It's so fun. And it's nice, you know, you get to like learn a little bit about the news and current events, but also laugh your ass off at the same time. So it's really cool, actually. I love it. And what do you want to leave people with as your final thoughts for the mishmash of topics that we had tonight, or just, you know, what's on your mind in general?
Oh man. Well, my final thought today, everybody, just if you see a story and you guys already know this, if you see an agenda, just go the other way. Just go the other way. If you can tell that freaking Facebook or YouTube or CNN wants you to believe something, they are lying to you.
Yes.
They're lying about this freaking virus. It's not what they say it is. You don't need to wear a damn mask. They're lying about everybody hating each other. They're lying about this racial conflict. They're lying about this police stuff. Just go the opposite way. You're going to be a lot happier.
I heartily agree with all of that sentiment. So, fellow travelers of the path, it is a beautiful thing. This has been your analog electric concentric dose of wisdom, according to Jay Ritchie of War on Morons. Jay, thank you so much for chatting tonight. It was really fun to do this random show.
It was fun.
Awesome. Well, I don't have anything written up to say to everyone as a closing, but in general, I hope that we can all become more and more clear on the agenda and what it wants us to do, as Jay said, and go the other way when we see it clearly. If they're all in agreement and we see it everywhere, then that's probably a good sign that it's bullshit. And think more clearly, especially outside of our boxes. I try to do it. I try to go into the opposite camp, you know, and try to figure out, like, why do people feel this way and what do they actually want and how can we somehow maybe connect, or how can I learn a little bit more about something I wasn't already thinking before. It's a good practice. I would love to do more of it on the show, honestly, if I could trust people to not just freak out and attack me. So maybe we can get that happening. But definitely question everything. Always aim for freedom over anything else, and self-responsibility over anything else that they're trying to sell you. And until you can master all of those things, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Nasty motherfuckers with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertisement, bone plated nickel. Fire rate automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slabber. Hey, making jabbers with reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdalas. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, vein style backbreaker. Genghis Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole set, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like crates to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dusted towels, no rags. Straight melt dash, dust to ash. Turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose, my service touches the sun's surface, and rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons, Hollywood's for peons, cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Ay, I ain't done yet, lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it, it's a secret. Now you're nobody, label somebody, trying to claim John Gotti. It's yours truly, God body.